All right, folks, let's get started on this new cycle. Okay, first step, we're gonna go for straight deadlifts. Okay, so I want that back super flat, bend those knees. As we start to lower down towards the knees, I want those hips continuing to lower down with you as well. And then stand up, open up nice and tall, squeeze those glutes. Okay, one more time. Hips are back as we're lowering down, bend those knees, keep the hips coming down below those shoulders, and then push through those legs, come all the way up. Okay, your next movement will be a pullover. So you can either go one or two weights, depending on how heavy your weights are. Okay, I like to keep my elbows forward and my palms forward here, and I'm gonna reach back with this weight as far as I can behind my head without letting my chest arch up, and then squeeze back and over. Okay, a little bit different angle. We're here, nice and tight. Squeeze, 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 and pull over. Okay, if your weights are relatively heavy on this one, you can always hold it a little bit more like a goblet position, and then you can bend those elbows a little bit more, which will shorten that lever arm so you can work with the weights that you got. Okay, you can always substitute a bent over row as well. Okay, so here, shoulders down and back, and pull straight up, elbows in close to your body. Okay, next up, depending on how heavy your weights are, we're gonna go for either a Russian kettlebell or dumbbell swing. Focus here is hinging from those hips and using your glutes to generate that momentum to get that weight out in front of you. If it's relatively light, we're gonna go all the way overhead. As you go overhead, just make sure you keep that core hollow and keep those glutes on until that weight comes back in. Okay, if you have relatively light weights, just suck that weight in towards your chest, bend your knees, and we're just sitting back with those hips and moving from the hips all the way back, coming up for that squeeze to simulate that movement. Okay, up next, upright rows. Weights out in front of you, shoulders down and back, and we're going to drag these elbows nice and high. I'm going to keep the weights relatively close to the center of my body. Okay, if it's relatively heavy, go to one dumbbell, hands inside the center of that dumbbell handle, and still think about dragging your elbows up versus lifting it up with your hands. Okay, next up, elevated hamstring curls. Here, boom, we're going to stack your heels on top of your couch or object, and then think about pulling your heels down and back to bring these hips off the ground. We're really trying to work these hamstrings and these glutes back here. Okay, if you don't have anything convenient, just stay from the floor, and still the same idea. Drive through those heels and think about pulling those heels back towards your hips. Okay, next up, bent over face pulls. All right, I'm going to shoot for the right in the center of your nose here. Weights out in front. We're going to squeeze those shoulder blades back and then drag these weights straight towards your nose. Don't hit your nose, but this exercise, we're trying to target the back of these shoulders here. So again, think about dragging your elbows back behind you. Okay. Next up, weighted glute bridges. We're going to go straight from the ground on this one. You're going to stack your weights right over your hips. And then here, we're going to drive up. Instead of like that hamstring curl, we're targeting more of the glutes on this one to open up the hips. Okay. Next up, bent over reverse flies. Unlike a lateral raise, we're working the back of the shoulders. For this reverse fly, we're going to work the inside of the back, right between your shoulder blades, that rhomboid muscle. Okay. So for this one, I'm going to keep my arms relatively straight. I'm going to be in my bent over position, and I'm trying to focus on using my back muscles to pull these arms back towards my side. Unlike a lateral raise where my elbows are bent and I'm trying to use my shoulders here, we're trying to focus on the back, squeezing to bring these weights up. Okay. If your weights are too heavy, you can go for a bent over row hold. So from here, we're going to come up to your chest, and then from this point, you can focus on really squeezing your back muscles tight for 5 seconds and then releasing the weight. Okay, so those are your modifications. Give it a shot.